putting milk into coffee and anything really putting into coffee should be some kind of crime that should be prosecuted by an international tribunal of some kind. It's just weird to me that someone in like the highlands of some exotic country will toil away and produce this cherry that then gets roasted through a specific process, flown all the way over here, and produced for you, and then you put some like cow's milk in it. It just doesn't make sense, honestly.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm doing fantastic. An excellent guest is just a few minutes away. But before we get to him, a couple quick reminders. Number one, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. It does help. And I promise you, the algorithm, it doesn't like wholesome, good content. It likes that trashy other nonsense, where people say dumb things and then people are challenging each other, and half the time it's really just incoherent nonsense. But I want to say, we do appreciate you guys for giving us love and support, and we can continue to do great interviews like that with that love and support. So you can find us at the Grappling Hour at every single social media. So it's at Grappling Hour, at Grappling Hour, at Grappling Hour. But if you want to see these interviews 30 days before anybody else, all you have to do is go over to HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour, and you will be able to buy a nice little membership that allows you to see them 30 days before anybody else. Or if you want to see the premium content, which we're going to film with our good guest here today, of a little bonus episode, which we haven't even decided which one we're doing. It's a choose your own adventure. We'll see. It'll actually surprise me, and I'm not somebody who gets surprised on my own show very much. Anyway, what do we say about our guest here today? Well, first of all, he's very funny. I want to point this out. It is hard to make me laugh. I think that you guys have seen enough really, really bad memes, not from me, from other people, that you've probably looked at and thought, like, why are these jiu-jitsu people thinking they're funny? And it's even better when you get somebody who's got an international flair, who you've seen on major stages, including Polaris, at IBJJF, on a podium, not missing flights. Just want to put that out there. That's a thing now that you can do, apparently. And you may not even know that this man has a 12-1 amateur record in MMA, which I would like to get into as well. But he is an excellent instructor. You can catch him over at Legion Jiu Jitsu down in the San Diego. But more importantly, you can catch him right now and get to know the man, the myth, the hilarious legend. One, Miha Perhavec. How are you doing, sir?
Pretty well. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You look great today. You look rejuvenated. You look rested. You said you forgot about doing this show, but you forgot about it in a way that you designed it on purpose so that you would remember. So how did that work?
Well, I tried to keep a calendar, and I knew that I've got like an archery lesson at 5, which means that I'm for sure going to go from there to home because home is close, and I'm going to be here by 6:30, regardless. Right now it's 6:30 for you viewers who find this irrelevant. But yeah, that's how I kind of planned it, yeah. And notifications on my phone as well.
Beautiful. And I always try to remind the guest, like, hello, do we still have an accord? Do I still see you? So I try to be professional in that way, because I don't expect you to memorize every single thing, but you made it. You did come up with a foolproof plan. Having said that, archery, where did this come from, and how long has this been of interest to you?
Honestly, it's a pretty new interest. I've always kind of liked shooting things with anything really, but arrows, it's kind of a new thing. I don't know. I just feel like I've gotten pretty good at jiu-jitsu, which like turned it from a hobby into a profession, and archery seems like a really cool thing to do, and you can do it from like a predetermined space, because I tried to pick up surfing, but the problem is driving to the ocean and doing all of the other stuff. I think this would be a little bit easier. So yeah, I just find it interesting, and today was the first step into trying it out, and I'll probably buy a bow to practice more.
Oh, wait a second. So this was lesson number 1?
This was lesson number one. I mean, I've done archery before, but this was specifically a compound bow lesson that I wanted to try.
So what do you look for in an instructor when you're buying, say, a private for that? Because you yourself offer great privates and they're tempting, although you're very far from me, because LA to San Diego doesn't seem far, but then you get on a freeway and you go, and you know what? I'll see him when I see him.
Yeah. Are we talking about like jiu-jitsu privates or any type of private?
No. Because so you said this was one of your first classes. So as an instructor yourself, I'm sure you have to seek out a very good archery instructor, and you don't probably just pick anybody because you yourself know what it is like to teach people.
Yeah, in this case, in this time, this wasn't really the case because I kind of went to a place that's nearby. So the establishment sells bows and arrows and stuff like that, and they also have like a section where there's just lessons. So I kind of walked in without picking and choosing my instructor. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeking out a couple.
Okay, fair enough. I have to ask, because I ask this of anybody who does anything, are there any comparisons that you've seen so far in jiu-jitsu with this? Because to me, if I'm looking at somebody like you, I'm thinking, okay, you may know a little bit more on if these are transferable skills, or is it one of those things like you're me, you major in communications, and then you go, oh, this is not applicable to anything in the outside world?
I've had some experience in that for sure with my degree, but no, when it comes to the instructor, I feel like often you have to try them out and see how they explain things. But generally, someone that will confidently and precisely instruct you and will be like as efficient as possible in conveying the information. That's generally what I would look for in someone.
Fair enough. That's really good to hear. And again, it is very nice to hear that you're picking up new hobbies, new things. It must mean that things are going well at Legion. And, you know, it's always funny because I keep up with your content, and we've gotten to this era where I've been like, oh, Keenan's doing a joke now. I don't need to watch that video. But your videos, mwah, so good. You picked up that whole self-deprecation. You put up a video the other day about being a bad black belt drill instructor sort of vibe. And then you put the very end of being like, hey, it's all good if you come late. It's all good. And then you put up a follow-up meme, which is kind of like cheating, but that's fine. And then you basically say everybody talking about your acting in that, which leads to the assumption that you may actually be more of the bad black belt, drop down and give me 20 for being late than you insinuate here. So where does stuff like that come for you? And when did you guys start doing those kind of very funny videos?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as the acting part goes, I think it would be really easy for me to be a super aggressive, sadistic instructor. Somehow I managed to suppress it every single day to be more professional and personable. As far as the videos go, you know, there's some things in jiu-jitsu culture that are just so outdated and ridiculous that personally it kind of makes me a little bit embarrassed to be a part of the whole scene. But at the same time, I don't really like the holier than thou approach. Like, what am I going to do? Go on Instagram and criticize practices and break them down and be like, this is the way that we do it here. It's so much better. I think the best way to get lessons across, not maybe even lessons, but just your ideas, is sometimes through comedy and through humor, because by being a super ridiculous instructor and screaming "you maggot" at my friend's face, it gets the point across much better for anyone than that other approach, you know, writing a blog article about how things need to change and whatever.
That makes sense. And I have to say, what makes me laugh a lot of the times is, you know, a big MO for us here on the shows that I've worked on is that I think jiu-jitsu takes itself a little too seriously, and it's hard for me to find my space in there. So we've always kind of been goofballs and tried to take an outside track in our comedy approach. And what we've realized now is it's almost become a normalized thing where now people are doing videos where I have my friends sending me things that say, I bet you berimbolo to get stuff out of your fridge kind of videos. And I go, listen, dude, I can't berimbolo to begin with. So this video has nothing to do with me, but props to this person who's doing this. This is a very funny video. So I feel like we're starting to get a little more relaxed in what we do. Having said that, I did see one video and I did say something to you, and it did kind of spur this kind of conversation that I thought we needed to have, which was you put on a very, what I like to call America singlet. And, you know, I know that you're teaching a lot of the stand up and you advocate not always pulling guard, but it made me look at it and I was like, that's an impressive America singlet, but I have a better one. And then you told me, you're like, prove it. So I want to say I can prove it. The difference is, why do you think that your particular America singlet is the best? I want to hear.
Well, first of all, the backdrop of it is an American flag, of course, right? It has to be. Legion American Jiu Jitsu, we're wrestling out there. It has to have that. And then it has not one, not two, but three bald eagles on it. And they all look pretty majestic. So as far as that and my obviously impressive natural physique filling it out, I think it's really hard to beat that combo.
Okay, but can we also point out the fact that, one, cheating, two, if we're being honest, I don't know that you could really pull off the America singlet while not being a full American. So, little offended there, okay? I don't think you can beat me on that.
Hey, in America, you can be anything. It's a free country.
God damn it. Don't recite our freaking preamble at me. I don't need that. My man's coming in over here being like, I don't know, man, I'm part of the American dream. Let me go ahead and bust out what I have for you, which is this. Okay, so years ago, we were working with a company, and they were a sponsor for our show for a little bit. And they told us they were trying to push some gis and looking at different jiu-jitsu equipment. And they're like, hey, look at anything you like and let us know if there's any that you might want us to have sent to you. And I looked at it, and it wasn't bad. You know, they were just starting to get in the jiu-jitsu landscape, and they're more of a wrestling company. And I happened to stumble upon their wrestling products. And that's when I found this, which I believe, in my sincere heart of hearts, is the truest of all, like, singlets.
Wow.
Now, look at this. I need you to understand that this is an eagle that is attacking you from a double leg. So what are you supposed to do when you see that coming at you, sir? I'm just letting you know that when I saw that go up, and I saw yours was trying to be way more real to life. Like, you could tell it was almost like a majestic painting. This is an affront. This is basically saying, I declare war on you. So I ask you now that you've seen this.
Yeah.
What is your response to that now, sir?
I mean, I think I've only seen one side of it, and it's like a three-dimensional object. So I would definitely be down to see the front as well. I didn't see
that's fine.
The double leg part.
I can 100% put this on. Well, not putting it on. I can 100% show you.
I see.
Look at this. Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, that's solid. You know, that's solid.
Okay.
But I like both, honestly. I'm gonna take the cop out route and just say that both are pretty majestic, honestly. Better than a normal singlet for sure.
Fair enough. You're gonna take the gentleman's agreement out of discussion. That's okay. I didn't think that would be you, but I have learned a lot about you within a few seconds. But can I tell you the more impressive thing about that video is the fact that you were wearing wrestling shoes, and that you could see that you had slides on underneath it. So you had sandals and wrestling shoes. And so when people look at it, they think to themselves, oh, he was off the mats with his wrestling shoes. No. You had the slides on underneath. And it was fairly impressive, the movement that you created with that. So cheers to you, sir, because that is not an easy thing to pull off there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's discuss this. We'll get into a little bit of your origin story. And full disclosure, I would have worn that singlet, but then I recognized that you would not have been wearing yours. So I was like, you know what? The unfortunate part about being host is there is no coming back to put on a shirt after you've put on the singlet. You do the rest of the interview in the singlet.
Okay.
And then there's the additional problem of, if you wait till the end of the interview, then you know the whole time I was wearing the singlet underneath, and that in itself is very silly. So I thought long and hard about this process.
Gotcha. I appreciate the forethought for sure.
You know, there's a lot of thought that goes into a lot of stupid. So Just to know, those two things
I
are
know.
sometimes synonymous. So, Miha, tell me about this. When did jiu-jitsu enter your life, and how did it enter your life? Because I'm familiar with the fact that it does seem like, I believe judo was the first martial art, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So it started in 2010 is when I first encountered jiu-jitsu. So I've been doing judo at that point for probably like between 8 and 10 years, and I just received my black belt in judo when I was 18. And at that point, judo's rules were changing a lot. So it was taking away the double leg, the murotogari was taken away. A lot of the fireman's carry, kataguruma throws. It just was becoming less and less complete of a martial art. So I really wanted to find out if I can actually fight. So I wanted to do MMA. I I don't have that story where I got a DVD of UFC one and then it all started from there. I actually first ran into MMA by way of pride. My dad called me into the living room. He was like, "Look, this Croatian guy, like from nearby, is fighting this Brazilian dude," and it was Krokop against Nogueira. So that's when I kind of saw jiu-jitsu in action for the first time, and I always wanted to try it. Went into I mean, to call it an academy is pretty much, it is a stretch, but it was basically a community center where puzzle mats were put down every time and a group of guys would beat the crap out of each other, and the instructor happened to be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. So I started doing MMA, and along the way I was also training in the gi, doing jiu-jitsu, and I was like, man, this is everything that I wanted judo to be. Yeah, I can still do all my stuff from there, but also submission. So that got me hooked real quick.
I always ask this because I am genuinely curious about this for everybody's journey. When did you know that you actually love jiu-jitsu? Because a lot of people start doing it, and it sounds like you had all these competing things vying for your attention, and some degree of, I like MMA, I like judo, I like maybe a little bit of these aspects of wrestling as well. But what is it about that jiu-jitsu that started sticking out to you?
So it was probably around the second class that I knew that I really liked this. I didn't decide that I'm going to do it long term yet, because I still kind of saw it as a piece towards the whole getting good at MMA thing. But I remember a couple of distinct moments, like learning a triangle from the back and getting a couple of people with it was really cool. And there was this massive bodybuilder guy in the class, a white belt. I've never since, in my like 12 years of doing jiu-jitsu, I have never rolled with someone that had an upper body like that and like a bodybuilder physique. So what would happen is we would spar every day. I was about 170 pounds, and I almost developed mild claustrophobia from being stuck under him in side control. But I would constantly battle this guy every week, and just that struggle of it was something that I really liked about jiu-jitsu. It didn't need strikes or anything to be cool and interesting.
That's very cool to hear. Having said that, since you can kind of see both worlds, and I've seen you put out several videos on the topic of pulling guard, I think that makes you somebody I'd like to ask this question to, and I hope that you can lead us in the right direction. What's wrong with us? Because think about it. If you really get down to the nitty-gritty of this, we're totally okay with just sitting down. And I know you lead this crusade to try. And I got to tell you, as a resident old person, it's hard to wrestle with people. I've sometimes thought that ship has sailed, but I have given it valiant efforts, thus singlets, thus working with wrestling coaches. So I'm doing my best here to try and put up my side of the deal. But what's wrong with us as a jiu-jitsu culture where we're like, I don't feel like I can do this?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the way the incentives are aligned in a jiu-jitsu competition, because pretty much every school has a competition team as well. So it's that is one part of it. And yeah, the other thing that I kind of understand too is that like 40-year-old dads don't want to like clash heads together going for double legs on each other. I don't think that's any excuse, really. I think it probably really boils down to just academies not having enough structure and honestly knowledge in takedowns to run a comprehensive program that has people starting from standing. And an additional thing maybe would be that most academies have a lack of space on the mats. They're not huge places normally. So if you don't have a lot of space to roll from the feet, then that kind of twists your academy in a direction where guard pulling is more of a thing.
I understand that. That's a very nice answer. I would tell you this. One of my favorite recent things that I've come across is I was working with a gentleman in a wrestling class, and I was walking him through some of the technique, like trying to relay the thoughts of the instructor and saying like, oh, hey, he said, kind of put your arm here. And don't worry, man, I don't believe I know more than you. I'm just working with you and trying to fill in some gaps. Mm-hmm. And this dude's like looking at me and he goes, oh man, it's hard for me. I'm really old. And I'm like, you're 2 years older than me. I am literally about the same age as you. Yeah. So I understand this is not easy. And I would tell you myself, if we're not going to do a certain thing, because I share similar concerns where certain moves I go, yeah, it's not going to happen for me, but looks great. Probably not the smartest one for me. And I've definitely tried to do my best on that and work around it. What have you found for your older students? And I mean, when I say older students, it could be 30. But when you do see older students who are trying to adapt that wrestling style, what has been your best advice to getting them to maybe get the concepts or a little bit more of a strategy that works for them?
Yep. Well, the first thing is learn how to fall. Learn how to fall properly. So don't be afraid of getting taken down. Get your breakdowns down, your ukemi, just so that you have that confidence that when you fall, nothing that bad is going to happen. One thing that I also think helps a lot, and not to get off topic too much, but having a subfloor under your mats at the academy, that's also one thing that helps a lot, honestly. And as far as all the other stuff goes, what I like to say to people is like, look, you should have an understanding of grips and postures when it comes to the stand-up game, and you should have one wrestling takedown and maybe 1 or 2 judo throws. Judo throws fall into different categories, maybe a trip and maybe some kind of upper body throw from the clinch. At least so that you start with those, and then obviously you can build on top of that. I think for an older person, proficient in takedowns, you can actually get away with a lot by just like standing a little bit upright and countering people shooting on you, or preventing that with good hand fighting. Yeah.
That's great. I think one of the first things I was trying to work on when we recently got a wrestling coach at my school is he's like, on our first private, what do you want to work on? I go, hand fighting. And he goes, yeah. Mm-hmm. I go, yeah, because I don't see myself shooting in millions of times. If I'm going to do it, it has to be very specific and it really has to work to my advantage. Having said that, if I can beat them on the hand fight, at least I can get in on a grip. And I think that might help me in a little bit more. And I like the fact that the first thing he said to me was, he was like, oh, well, you kind of know what you're looking for. And I was like, oh, no, I know what's wrong with this. I just can't fix it. So he's been very patient and a very big help on my side. So that, I think, is some very solid advice. So I guess the question is, when we get down to the idea that you were looking at that time when you were starting your journey, that you wanted to fight, I guess the question is, why did you want to fight? Because you obviously saw it on TV, and I know it's a bonding moment with your dad, and there's elements of pride and being like, oh, that's really awesome to see somebody from your area where you live doing that. But that's also not really talking about the punches you take, the training you do, the heavy amounts of work that you go and put into all of this. So given all of those difficulties, why fight?
Yeah, honestly, that's a pretty deep question that I haven't really thought about that much. But the simple answer, I guess, would be when I found judo. My dad introduced me to judo before that bonding moment, and I just like the scrappiness of it. I've done sports before, I've done tennis, I've done football. I was pretty mediocre at all of them. And honestly, I was pretty mediocre at judo as well. Just kind of a late bloomer, I guess. The jiu-jitsu was really the first sport where I was like, oh, like weight. Like I'm actually pretty freaking good at this. Especially in the early stages, because I came in with so much baggage from judo, just as when it comes to training hard, not being afraid to, getting grips. Like there's a lot of similarities there. So yeah, there's always been something appealing about fighting, and MMA is just the most liberal rule set. If you go down that route, you might find yourself curious, just how would I do in a real fight? And the other answer is I've been pretty good at avoiding getting into fights on the streets, or like many like schoolyard fights. So I wanted to find out what I can do, protect myself as well.
What was your strategy for getting out of it? Was it just being nice? Because you are a generally nice person, and when we've run into each other, you're like, I couldn't imagine anybody wanting to fight you.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case in the past. Nowadays, I avoid fighting, because why would you fight some loser on the streets when you fight top-notch killers every day? And also, people have guns, people have knives. I think we need to understand that jiu-jitsu isn't magic if someone has a weapon, And there's no positive outcomes from fighting on the streets. Like what, over road rage? Cool, like I throw a punch, break my hand, you hit your skull on the ground, crack it, now I'm in trouble for life. It just makes zero sense. But in my younger years, yeah, I think it was just like not hanging around in places and with crowds that would facilitate fights on the daily. But yeah, it was not a huge effort.
Good for you. My strategy, because I always had a mouth on me, was anytime somebody wanted to fight, I could just turn the crowd against them because I was funnier than most people. So when that happens and you start roasting somebody, it turns into a little bit of Def Comedy Jam where you're like, yo, ma, like the dumbest, funniest jokes that you could do at their expense, and then picking apart. So in a way, I didn't realize this until a lot later, where I would roast, say, my training partners. And I tell them, I'm like, if you take comedy out of my passing, I probably don't have great passing. But if you add my ability to roast you, I'm probably going to pass a lot more likely than I would without it. So, when people start talking about knee cut to my classes, it's like, all right, if you feel like they have a giant head, start honing in on that. That's your first thing. Then get the staple, then get the underhook. Then we're good here, people. So we just have different approaches. But I like the fact that you were finding the nonviolent way of doing it.
Have you ever done like roast, like proper roast, like on a stage where you're going against someone?
So let me point this out to you. I have done a roast for a friend, and we were all in MMA or jiu-jitsu, and he's a fairly prominent coach, and I was roasting some people that I knew and some that I didn't. And when you have a dais, you are supposed to attack everybody on the stage. So I was roasting people that I'm like, I've never trained with this person, so I don't know how this is going to go afterwards. And everybody was pretty good. There was one guy who got one that was really good on me, where I was wearing like a jacket, because this was in an era where I was doing work at comedy clubs, and I would wear like jeans and a suit jacket and a tie. And one of these guys goes, yo, why my man dressed like a really, really hot substitute teacher? And I was like, well, listen, at least it was a very nice compliment, but I get where he was going for it. I was like, damn, that was really right on. But everybody's good. And I have a policy, which is, when you do memes or you do jokes at people's expense, from day one with Verbal Tap, we had this policy, which was we would never do a joke on air that we wouldn't do to somebody's face. And so we've done that for years, and Keenan will attest. I've done jokes at his expense, but I've also told them right to his face.
Yeah.
The only thing that I do that kind of caveats it is I do tell people I will likely train with those people, so they get their kind of revenge, if they so seek it, on me. But I've trained with some very, very good people whose jiu-jitsu is far beyond mine. Fortunately, my mouth has sometimes allowed me to be a little bit longer than I need to be.
Nice.
So don't get me wrong. I'm already taking notes of all the things I've got as material for you, because I figure we're already at DEFCON 3 whenever I'm rolling with you, where I got to be like, break the emergency case. We got to go. My man can wrestle and he can judo toss me.
I've been actually testing out a new submission that would work pretty well for that. I call it the Hug of Death. It's kind of like a working title. Basically what it is you get half guard, top or side control, and then you put your arms like nice and low, and basically when the person exhales, you apply more pressure on the rib cage so that it literally can't expand for more breathing. And then they struggle to breathe for like 10 seconds, and then they often tap. So that might work pretty well for that specific scenario, just so you know.
That's all right. I'm going to do situationals from that position now, just to be a little prepared for it. I'm just telling you, listen, it's kind of like Deadpool when he didn't have a mouth. It's not a great scene. If I don't have a mouth, it's just going to look like shitty jiu-jitsu. So choose your killing methods properly. So, okay. There's a few things that I want to get into. Obviously, you do international kind of competitions. And I think we kind of come into knowledge of you as a grappler as you're starting to make a name for yourself at the purple belt level. You're doing really well. But why do you end up coming to the States? Like, what brings you out this way? Because it is nice here, but I do understand to other people, especially international folks, we do seem insane here. So what is the appeal of coming out this way and becoming one of us insane folks?
So jiu-jitsu is definitely the primary reason. Obviously, America's the hotspot for jiu-jitsu, but I don't know, maybe I just fell right in for the propaganda, but I don't actually mind being here at all, you know. I actually, there are some things perhaps one could say about this big nation that are a little bit interesting, but yeah, for me it's like, so Slovenia, for example, where I'm from, beautiful country, like cool people there. I definitely want to go back there for sure, like obviously to visit, and later in life I think it's kind of like a good place to call it there, you know. But because there's not a huge level of jiu-jitsu there, for me it kind of feels like there's no air or no water. So it's pretty much the same. For me, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know, my addiction requires me to be in a metropolitan area with a top-notch training environment for extended periods of times. Otherwise, there's something missing, at least for now.
What has been the thing that you have appreciated the most since moving here? Because again, it does seem like you've adjusted yourself nicely. You do seem to enjoy things. You want to go surf, but too far, and I understand that. You're learning our greatest sport, archery, over here. So you're definitely taking the time to see the sights and do the things while you're here, while also doing the thing that you love, which is jiu-jitsu. So what have you enjoyed the most in your time in the States thus far?
Yeah, before kind of settling here in San Diego, my wife and I, we've actually traveled around the world 2 times, like literally around the world. We basically just traveled for 2 years straight. So we spent quite a bit of time in America, going all over. So I think the sites of the national parks are completely top notch. So if I mean, I know the question is pretty broad, but if I had to narrow it down, I think just the places are really amazing, some of them. And then I also like the people and the vibe. Obviously, you have so many different people with different interests, but one thing that I like compared to Slovenia, for example, there's a path towards growth. And if you're trying to improve yourself constantly, most people are like, you go girl, you know. And in Slovenia and some other countries in Europe, smaller places, there's a little bit of that crabs in the bucket thing, where if you're trying to go beyond where people are going, they're kind of like, what's wrong with you? And I know that exists here too, and it depends on who you hang out with and stuff like that. But those would be the 2 things: one physical and one cultural.
Can I backtrack here for a second? Are you telling me right now that you moved from Slovenia because no one was telling you go girl there? I think that's something that could have easily been remedied there, sir.
That's actually, we finally got to the bottom of it. That was something that was so deep inside of me that I didn't know that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. It's my job as a responsible interviewer here. So let's expand upon this, because you could choose any phraseology in the entire world. Are you looking in the mirror before you film a video and being like, you go girl? Like, where is that coming from? Because a lot of people now are in that let's go phase. They love saying that. The kids, they love that one. They have a lot of different things that are powerful motivators.
Yeah.
Where did that come into your lexicon, and why are we holding on to that one of all of them?
I mean, that was just honestly, that was just a funny thing to say in the spur of the moment.
No. There's a lot of funny things to say. And you've been here for long enough to know certain ones. I'm sitting here thinking, like, my man threw that one in and he doesn't expect me to roast him for this. I
don't know where that one came from. Somewhere, I guess, very deep from early 2000s reference somewhere, probably, I imagine. Maybe watching like a movie about blonde girls or something back in the day. Probably.
It's all right. Listen, we all get our motivations from different places. And now we've discovered the source of your power. And you better believe if we do start training and we are rolling, I will 100% tell you, hey, let's go, girl. And then you go, girl.
Yeah.
We'll follow after that.
You know what? It's just how exact. I don't see how that's gonna work with like my hand on your mouth smothering you. You know.
That's fair. You don't understand that I will have a recording of myself already taped, just in case I lose the ability to talk. Also, I like where your head's at here, because it seems to insinuate the fact that's like, oh, Raph, you would have no time because I would be too busy thrashing you. You seem to forget one thing. I will cheat, and I'm not afraid of it, because as you get older and you start rolling with people like you got to come up with backup plans. Like literally Kevin McAllister level booby traps around the mats, just making sure that I can make it through a good 6 minutes with you.
Yeah. I can see you like greasing, but then we roll in the gi.
You know what? That's what it is. I'm going to forget my gi conveniently the next time I make it down to San Diego. Let me ask this, because you put up something that I was actually very proud of, which is that you recently had a video where you demonstrated a rock bottom. And then you said for a little while, sheepishly, mind you, that you used to watch pro wrestling when you were a kid. And I have to tell you, what you were demonstrating there is legitimately something that I do. So that although I don't have great judo, I know that one pretty well.
It is a good move if you get into it. Even like off a collar tie, you kind of like shuck them by, that arm's still there on the trap, you can bring it back into it. And you know what's the coolest thing about it? You can kind of choke people with it while you're throwing them as well. So it's a legitimate move. I'm a lot prouder of it than of ever watching pro wrestling, that's for sure.
Wow. Hurtful words here, sir, because this is a very pro wrestling podcast here.
Okay. Sorry.
We're about to do our signature week, which combines pro wrestling and jiu-jitsu, called WWE BJJ Week, where we give out a customized title to somebody who submits the best.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's a real thing. We legitimately have a real belt. I'm looking at last year's. We're going to send out that to the winner very soon as we film it. But we do a whole shtick. People send in videos. We decide who the best ones are. We have friends and fans of the show who send them in. They're usually very funny. And then I myself do a showcase, like main event match with storyline and very funny people that I know on my side. So you're more than welcome to submit for that. I guess if you're too embarrassed by the sport, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe just, I'm only speaking for myself, by the way, but maybe I just regret not watching the UFC instead of pro wrestling at the time, just because it's my preferred flavor of combat entertainment.
So I argue this, especially with people who grew up in a certain generation. The nice portrait that we just got here, this artwork, it's very good. Stone Cold Bret Hart. I actually realized in my years of starting to grapple, a lot of my jiu-jitsu could be traced back to always looking at the technical wrestlers, because when I would like scrap with my buddies or horse around, I was always trying to hit those moves, but I didn't know quite how to do them. Now, when I'm rolling with my students, that's all the stuff I hit on them. Like, I'm not interested in a Kimura. I want to hit a Boston Crab. I'm not interested in side Sankaku. I'm interested in a figure 4 leg lock. And the worst part is, I always tell them, I'm like, if you get out of this, it means your jiu-jitsu works. And if I get you with it, it means that you need to figure out how to not let me do that. So it's more incentive for them to be like, how do you get out of this? And where's the knee line? And what am I supposed to do? And all of a sudden things change when you hit them with really dumb, not real moves.
Yeah, look, when someone outside heel hooks you, just like grab the foot and turn it into a sharpshooter and you get them with that.
It's legitimately one of my go-to. It's my finishing move. So that's why this painting over here is the best. Sam Evans art. Go check him out, everybody. Let's talk about a couple other things that I kind of wanted to push in here. Number one, I see on your bio on the American website, or the Legion website. I always want to call it the American Legion, which is a very different thing here in the States. But when I looked at Legion's website, it says here that you're a snobby coffee guy. What does that mean? What does that entail? And how much are you spending on coffee? Because it seems like snobby people pay a lot more for their coffee.
Yeah, what it means is that if it's not single origin, I'll just spit it out. That's pretty much what it means. Now, in all seriousness, yeah, I spend a decent amount on coffee, but it's not outrageous for a cup that brings you so much joy in the morning. I think it's a fair price to pay. And as far as my snobbiness goes, I either like to find a good specialty coffee place and get my coffee there, or make it at home. I think the thing that I'm the most snobby about is I think that putting milk into coffee, and anything really putting into coffee, should be some kind of crime that should be prosecuted by an international tribunal of some kind. It's just weird to me that someone in like the highlands of some exotic country will toil away and produce this cherry that then gets roasted through a specific process, flown all the way over here, and produced for you, and then you put some like cow's milk in it. It just doesn't make sense, honestly.
Is the beef with the cow? Because that last part I wasn't sure about.
No. It's not with the cow. It's just like with anything, or some like weirdly processed oats or anything. Sugar is also like, obviously for other reasons. That's just my my hot take when it comes to coffee, is that it should be enjoyed black, pure.
I will be honest with you. When asked, and somebody's buying coffee, let's say from Starbucks or something like that, I always tell them, I'm like, if you're going to get me something just black iced. I don't need anything else. And they go, why that? And I go, well, first of all, I don't want it to be weird or other shit in there. And it doesn't mean that I never have them. I really don't. But on occasion, I'll have them. And the second thing is, my wife puts a lot of creamer in hers, and I go, I can't do it. I go, if I have creamer, it's like a splash just to give it something different every once in a while. But I do black coffee every single day.
Respect.
Thank you. And I can't even call myself a snob here. The biggest thing that we've done is we have an espresso machine, and that's not at all snobby, but it is better than your K-cups, if you would. So I will say that.
Yeah, the K-cups, don't get me started on that. It's called the grappling hour, not the grappling day.
I'm happy that you're able to espouse your views on coffee. I think I share more of them than I thought I would. I actually thought I was going to be more like, look at this snob over here. And I was like, actually, I kind of believe most of these. Having said that, what is the perfect coffee order? So when you go, let's say, and all things considered, it's a nice little coffee shop that you found, maybe a mom and pop one. What is the order that you do, sir?
Probably if I have the time and they have a good drip coffee, probably like a manual pour over type thing. Otherwise, nitro cold brew, espresso. I go through all of them just to not have too much, just to not have the same kind every single time. Yeah.
All right. And how many coffees do you have per day?
I try to normally have 1, 2 at the most. So I normally have a coffee, and then we've got a bunch of those Jocko Go energy drinks at the gym. I drink one of those. Trying to limit it a little bit, but yeah, 2 coffees max.
Good for you. I try to follow about the same. I serve as a judge, my big kid job on game shows. And I find that if I have 2 coffees, the trigger finger that gives people prizes or not sometimes is a little shaky. So I'm like, you know what? No more coffee for this guy. We're starting to wrap things up on that side. Let me ask you this. So you're a solid competitor. You're a solid instructor. You've seen a lot of things in your years of doing this. One of the things I like to ask top-notch competitors is, what is it that you find that has helped you the most? Because you've competed in all different formats, but like, what is your best advice to new competitors when they're going out and starting to kind of embark on that journey?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the advice that I'm about to give, I guess I should take from myself a little bit as well currently. But especially early on, what helped me a lot was just competing a lot. Just getting out there and doing it as much as possible to get used to how different it is and to see the intensity is a little bit different. Obviously, you train hard, but not. It's hard to match the adrenaline and all that stuff. The other day, I was explaining competition to someone that hasn't done it before, and I said it's super weird, but your body kind of feels like you're getting posted up on a hill with a sword and a shield, and there's a bunch of other guys on the other side. You're gonna wrestle someone in a pajama, or you're gonna hug someone's legs for like 5 minutes, but it feels like that, right? And you gotta get used to it. Yeah.
Solid advice. Just imagine them in their pajamas, aka their gi. You got it. So you mentioned there that that's advice that you should be taking. Does that mean that we should be seeing more of you competing at some point in the near future? Because again, as somebody who's commentated your matches, I very much enjoy when you've competed.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So after Nogi World, I've taken a little bit of a break for a couple of months, and now I'm ramping up my training to the point where I'm probably going to start with the ADCC Open and then compete more through the summer. One thing that helps me a lot is also being on a professional competitor visa, so I literally have to stay here. Yeah, I have to fight for this country a little bit differently than most, but yeah.
We are very Hunger Games before the future, one might say. We're a very like, you need to go out there and fight if you want to stay here, buddy boy. So we very much are those people. But you know what? Upside is you get to enjoy all of our nonsense, and that's good. And we want to keep you here, so we should rack up some folks for you to just go through one day and just call it a competition. IRS, you didn't hear that. I'm sorry. Immigration Services, didn't hear any of that. I just want to point that out. That was just my idea. Natural citizen here. Thank you, everybody. I always like to kind of circle around toward the ability for people to do shout outs. Now, you really aren't plugging anything, so you didn't have a recent match either that we're like talking about, but I always want to give people the opportunity to thank their teams or people who help them on a daily basis. So I just want to give you an opportunity, put the camera on you. You can thank sponsors, all those people, and whoever it is that you want to give shout outs to, sir.
Yeah, for sure. I guess if I had to plug something, it would be just our academy, Legion in San Diego. If you live locally, definitely come try out a class, do a beginner course. If you train somewhere else and you're within driving distance, every Sunday we have an open mat. There's about 130 people on average that attend, so you can get an insane amount of rounds. And I do have a couple of courses on Jiu-Jitsu X, on judo. They're super affordable. If anyone wants to learn judo from a guy with a weird accent, please do that as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also follow me on Instagram for sporadic comedy videos and random techniques.
They're very good, both of them. So it's rare. Sometimes you only get one gift. You only see me do the comedy videos. You don't see me do the instructionals, unless I'm teaching people how to do a professional wrestling move, of which I feel actually very, very good at doing those. Miha, I want to tell you, as somebody who has appreciated your work, I really wanted to start a first conversation. I'm sure there will be many more in the future, but our interactions have always just been very kind and very nice. And I always make a note to kind of circle back to those folks. And at a certain point, when I saw so many of those funny videos racking up, I was like, why am I waiting anymore? Let's just do this interview now. Let's get this over with. Let's rip this Band-Aid off, because I know in person we'll do another one in the future. But I definitely wanted to acknowledge the great work that you're doing, and just let you know there's groups like myself and a lot of other people who have a high appreciation for the work that you're doing, sir.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, and likewise.
Yeah, it's all right. I do just fine on my own. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close this off. We're going to close out this interview. I'll see you back in just a second. But my appreciation, thank you very much, sir. I will see you just in a second, okay?
Okay, cool.
As a reminder, thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this stuff, like, share. We should make that a word, actually. Like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. We very much appreciate it here at the Grappling Hour. And remember, you can become a member at HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour. Become an early access member. Get the interviews 30 days before anybody else, or you can become a premium member and see this additional content that we're about to make right now, folks. What is it going to be? Who knows? Sometimes we do extra episodes where we talk about a certain topic, steroids sometimes, or we talk about things that are of interest to you guys. We also do video segments. We do technique breakdowns with individuals who have had recent matches or fights. Those are my favorite things to do. Love those. And on occasion, you might even see some of my rolling clips, which a lot of people don't always, but I have a pretty good sense of humor about it, and I'm happy to show them to you guys. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour. My name's Rafa Esparza. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.